okay, y'all, gonna try to keep this short. So chat with Matt is like done because I've like learned my lesson, and I really like should not spill about my personal life at all on here because I had some like scary people in the DMs. So yeah, no hard feelings though. At least you didn't send a bomb to my school. That was someone else. At least you didn't shoot up the train station next to my school. That it could have been you. I don't know. So yeah. Slay. We're gonna be reading Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It is probably up there with one of my it's probably one of my favorite books. I honestly just do like Russian literature. Like, oh my gosh, there was this one story, I forgot the name of it. I think it's called like Happy Marriage or something. It's by Tolstoy, and like it's about like the girl who's like kind of young, and like her like I think dad's friend or something like returns from like not being in town for a while, like after her dad dies, and she like falls in love with him, and it's like it's a cute story. It's a cute story, y'all. Okay, but yeah, I like Russian literature quite a bit. Don't know if this Crime and Punishment is my favorite book because it is pretty long. I read it back when I was like 14 because I had to for school, and I liked it. So yeah, we might as well just read it because I'm on summer break right now, and I don't really have anything to do because I don't feel like getting a part-time job. Like, I don't need a part-time job. It's 2 months. It's still technically the off season because like where I live, like the tourists don't really come until July, and I'm gonna be back in school by July for like a work-study program, which slay. I'm actually so grateful for that opportunity. But yeah, we're gonna read this starting now. I remember liking the character of Raskolnikov. That's all. I don't remember too much about this story, so I shouldn't say it's like my favorite, but it's kind of a slay. We like this book. Anyway. Part 1. And if the noise machine in the back bothers you, I'm sorry. I needed the noise machine to sleep because like since I've been in the city for such a long time, it's like impossible to sleep in silence anymore, and it honestly just disturbs me, you know? Like sleeping like in complete silence actually disturbs me so bad because like it's not that I hear stuff, it's just like I'm afraid of the potential of hearing something and getting freaked out. So yeah. That does make me very susceptible to robbery. So please, no one, please do not break into my house. Anyway. Part 1. Early one evening during an exceptional heat wave in the beginning of July, a young man walked out into the street from the closet-like room he rented on solitary Stoliarny Place. Which, honestly, same girl. Honestly, my dorm freshman year. Anyway. Slowly, as he could not make up his mind, he began to move in the direction of Kokushin Bridge. I forgot there's so many Russian names. Listen, Alexandrovich is going to be mad at me. Okay. He had managed... I need to stop with his commentary and just read the book. I'm so sorry, guys. He had managed to avoid meeting his landlady on the stairs. He lived practically under the roof of a 5-floor house in what was more than a cupboard than a room. In an apartment 1 flight below lived his landlady, from whom he rented his garret, dinner and service thrown in. Every time he went out, he had to pass her kitchen door, which almost always stood open facing the stairs. When he walked past, he felt a nauseous, cowardly sensation. It made him wince, and he was ashamed of it. He was deeply in debt to his landlady, and he feared meeting her. Not that he was cowardly or abject, quite the contrary. For some time, though, he had been tense and irritable, in a state resembling acute depression. He had plunged so far within himself, into so complete an isolation, that he feared meeting not only his landlady, but anyone at all. He had lately ceased to even... Honestly, same girl. He had lately ceased even to feel the weight of the poverty that crushed him. Same! He had completely lost interest in day-to-day affairs, and he had no wish to recover such interest. It was not landladies that he feared, no matter what this one happened to be plotting against him. To find himself stuck on the stairs, though, and forced to listen to the whole range of her nonsense and offensive rubbish for which he had absolutely no concern, forced to listen to her pesterings for payment, her threats, her appeals, and he himself, all the while, y'all are gonna judge me, bro, prevaricating? That makes sense. Prevaricating, making excuses, lying. No. Better somehow to slink down the stairs like a cat and slip away unseen. Bro, Raskolnikov just like me. Y'all, he just like me. As he came out onto the street, the terror that had gripped him at the prospect of meeting the landlady struck even him as odd. It's been so long since I've read a book. You really can't judge me. This is gonna be my arc of learning how to read again, like dead ass. I've rotted my brain so much with like my phone and just watching like YouTube and Instagram reels. As he came out onto the street, the terror that had gripped him at the prospect of meeting his landlady struck him even as odd. Imagine being scared of little things like that with the job I have in mind, he thought, smiling strangely. Well now, it's all in a man's hand, and if he lets it slip away, it's because he's a coward, and that's that. Yes, an axiom. And what scares people the most? It's a new step, an authentic new world. One Piece reference. He predicted One Piece. That's what. Anyway, I jabber too much. That's why I don't do anything, because I jabber. Or maybe it's the other way around. I jabber because I don't do anything. I really taught myself jabbering this last month, lying in the corner days on end thinking about King Never. Alright then. Why am I going now? Can I do that, really? Is that serious? No, it's not. So, I'm kidding myself. I'm indulging a daydream. Idle games. Yes, that's just what it is. Idle games. Outside, the heat had grown ferocious. Closeness, crowds, scaffolding, with lime and brick and dust everywhere, and that special summer stench feeling familiar to every Petersburger who cannot afford a summer cottage. It all jarred instantly and unpleasantly on the young man's nerves, which were tense enough already. The intolerable stench of the saloons, especially numerous in that part of town, and the drunks he came upon, in continually spite of the fact it was a working day, contributed to the melancholy and repulsive tone of what confronted him. An expression of the deepest loathing flashed for a moment across his sensitive face. He was incidentally a remarkably good-looking young man, above average in height, slender and well-built, with beautiful dark eyes and darkish blonde hair. They honestly need to make this into like an anime. Y'all can say I'm crazy. They need to make this to an anime. I guess Death Note is kind of like, well, it's nothing like Death Note. Anyway. He soon plunged into deep thought, or rather, into a kind of oblivion. He walked on without noticing his environment, without wanting to notice it. Every so often, he would mutter something to himself. It was that propensity for monologues he had already acknowledged as a peculiarity of his. At that moment, he knew his thoughts were confused. He knew he was very weak. For the second day now, he had scarcely touched food. He was badly dressed. So badly. It would have embarrassed a tramp to go out in such a rags in the daytime. In that neighborhood, though, nothing could surprise anybody. Close to the Haymarket, thick with whorehouses, it swarmed with a population of tradesmen and jack-of-all-trades, who combined to make those central streets of Petersburg flash with a panorama in which almost nothing or nobody could cause any surprise. And in spite of his occasional quite young, youthful fastidiousness, his rags bothered him, at least of all, when he was out in the street. Such bitter contempt he felt for the world. Meeting old friends or people he had known was another matter. He did not, in general, like to run into them. Yet, just then, a drunk rode past him on the street in an enormous cart drawn by an enormous dray horse. He was being carted off somewhere for some unknown reason, and he suddenly cried out, "Hey, you in the goddamn German hat!" Or he's drunk, I guess. "Hey, you in the goddamn German hat!" The drunk bellowed and waved at him, and the young man stopped suddenly and grasped convulsively at his hat. It was a tall, round Zimmerman top hat, quite worn out, altogether faded, all holes and stains, brimless and cocked at a most unseemly angle. Not shame, but an altogether different feeling. More like fear took hold of him. "I thought so," he muttered in confusion. "I thought so. The last straw. A dumb trick like that, the merest little thing like that, it could spoil the whole scheme. Yes, the hat stands out. It's absurd. That's why it stands out. To go with my rags, I need a worker's cap. Obviously. Anything. But not this monstrosity. Nobody wears them. It's so last season. It could be noticed a mile away. It would be remembered. Oh, yes, it would be remembered. It's evidence. You've got to be inconspicuous as possible. Little things are what count. Little things like that, why they could ruin everything once and for all. He did not have far to go. He even knew how many steps it was from the gateway of his house. 730 steps. Lost in dreams, he had... Girl, I sound like a child who's forced to read in class. I'm so sorry, y'all. Lost in dreams, he had somehow counted them once. He himself had not believed much in dreams at the time. He had merely allowed their hideous but seductive audacity to play upon him. A month later, he was beginning to look at them differently. To be sure, there were all those undermining monologues dealing with his own impotence and indecision. But in spite of them, somehow, and even against his will, the hideous dreams had turned into a project, though he did not yet quite believe in it. Now he was going to size up the project. With every step he grew more and more excited. He approached a huge house, facing a canal on one side, Sadovaya Street on the other. His heart was pounding, his nerves twitching. The house consisted of small apartments, and petty entrepreneurs of all kinds lived in it. Tailors, mechanics, cooks, assorted Germans, prostitutes, office workers, and so on. People scurried in and out of both entrances and around both courtyards, where 3 or 4 janitors were stationed. Quite satisfied that he had encountered none of them, the young man slipped unnoticed through the gateway on the right and up the stairs. The stairway was dark and narrow, a back stair, but he had known all that before. He had gone over it carefully. It pleased him. At such darkness, even an inquisitive glance did not matter. I'm so scared now. I wonder what it would be like if I were doing that. The question occurred to him as he came to the fourth floor. Moving men carrying furniture out of one of the apartments blocked his way. A German, a government clerk, and his family, as he knew beforehand, had occupied this apartment. So he's moving out now. That means, along with the stairs on the 4th floor, the old woman's apartment is the only one that's going to have somebody living in it for some time. Well, now. Good. He went over all this again as he rang the bell to the old woman's apartment. The bell rang feebly, as though it were made of tin and not of brass. In the cramped little apartment of such houses, there are always bells that sound like that. Its tone had slipped his mind. Now this peculiar tone reminded him suddenly of something. His nerves were so overwrought. He flinched. In a little while, the door was opened a tiny crack. Through the crack, the tenant observed her visitor with evident distrust. Only a small pair of eyes could be seen, glittering out from the darkness. Since there were a number of people on the landing, she grew bolder, and opened the door all the way. The young man crossed the threshold into the dark anteroom, divided by a partition behind which was a tiny kitchen. Excuse me. The old woman stood there silent and looked at him inquiringly. She was a dry crumb of a little old woman, about 60, with sharp and nasty little eyes and a small, sharp nose. She was bareheaded, her almost colorless hair turned only slightly gray, thickly plastered with grease. A flannel rag of some sort was tied around her neck, which, long and scrawny, resembled a rooster's claw. In spite of the heat, she wore a threadbare, faded fur jacket flung over her shoulders. She kept coughing and groaning. The young man must have been looking at her with a rather peculiar expression, for distrust flared up again in her eyes. I am Raskolnikov, a student. I came here about a month ago, the young man hastily muttered. He knew he had to be more polite, so he made a half bow. Oh, I remember, my good man. I remember quite well that you were here, the old woman said sharply, but she did not take her inquisitive eyes from his face. Well, you see, ma'am, I'm on the same business again, Raskolnikov went on. He was troubled and a bit surprised the old woman should distrust him so. But maybe she's always like that, and last time I just didn't notice it, he thought, feeling disturbed. The old woman was silent, as though mulling it over. Then she stepped aside, motioned her visitor to the door, and said, Go on in. The small room into which the young man stepped, yellow wallpaper, windowsill geraniums, chintz... What is that, girl? Chintz? Y'all be careful with your words. Curtains, was at that moment vividly illuminated by the setting sun. That's how the sun will be shining then, flashed, as if by chance, through the mind of Raskolnikov. With a swift glance, he took in everything in the room. He was using the opportunity to study and fix his memory the disposition of things. Yet there was nothing special in the room. The furniture, all quite old and of yellow wood, consisted of a couch with an enormous carved wooden back, an oval table in front of the couch, a dressing table and mirror between the windows, chairs along the walls, and 2 or 3 cheap pictures in yellow frames. German maidens, birds in their hands. That was all the furniture. In a corner before a small icon burned an oil lamp. Everything was very clean. Furniture and floor was polished to a gloss. Everything shone. Lisavetta's work, the young man thought. Not a grain of dust in the whole apartment. It's the rooms of nasty old widows that one finds a shininess like this. Curious, he touched the chintz curtain that hung over the door to the second small room where the old woman's bed and bureau stood, and into which he had not yet peered. These two rooms made up the whole apartment. "What is it you want?" the old woman said sternly, entering the room. As before, she stood directly in front of him so she could look straight into his face. He pulled an old, flat silver watch out of his pocket. "Here, ma'am, I brought something to pawn." There was a globe engraved on the back. The chain was of steel. "The time is this a lady saying that? Yeah, it is. "The time is up on your last pledge. The month was up the day before yesterday." "Just be patient. I promise I'll bring you the interest, all right?" "That's for me to say. I could sell your pledge right now." "How much for the watch, Iona Ivanova?" "The stuff you bring me is junk. Look here, it's worthless. Last time I gave 2 good paper rubles for that ring of yours. I could have brought a new ruble and a half at the jeweler's." "Let me have 4 rubles. I'll redeem it. It's my father's. I'm getting more money soon." "1.5 rubles, interest in advance. Take it or leave it," the young man cried. 1.5 rubles. Take it. Oh, wait. 1.5 rubles. Take it or leave it. The old woman handed him back the watch. The young man was so angry he wanted to leave, but he thought better of it at once, remembering there was nowhere else to go. And after all, he had come here for another reason as well. "Give it here," he said rudely. The old woman reached into a pocket for her keys, then went behind the curtain into the other room. Sorry, I drank a glass of milk. Left alone, the young man listened eagerly and followed her in his mind's eye. He could hear her open the bureau. Must be the top drawer, he reckoned. She carries her keys in the right-hand pocket, no doubt. All in one bunch on a steel ring. One key 3 times as big as the other, with a notched tip, obviously not to the bureau. Must be another chest or a strongbox. Funny. Strongboxes all have keys like that. What a lousy business. Bro, I could not be a murderer, because this man is like, he has everything like on point. I could never be if I could be a murderer, but I wouldn't be able to get away with it. So I will not be one. Because murder is bad, not because I can't get away with it. The woman came back. "Here you are. 10 kopecks a month to the ruble, 15 kopecks deducted from your 1.5 rubles for a month in advance. And for the 2 rubles already on account, at the same rate, 20 kopecks. So that comes to 35. That means you get 1.15 kopecks for your watch. Here." "So you got me down to 1.15 ruble, have you?" "That's it, exactly." The young man did not argue. He took the money. Looking at the old woman, he seemed to be in no hurry to leave, as though he had still something he wanted to say, but did not quite know himself what it was. "I might bring you something else in a day or so, Aliona Ivanova. It's a good silver. It's a cigarette case. I'm getting it from a friend of mine." He became confused and fell silent. "We'll talk about it when the time comes, my good man." "Goodbye, ma'am. Oh, yes. By the way, isn't your sister ever around? Are you always at home alone?" As he was walking into the anteroom, he tried to ask this as casually as he could. "What business of that is yours?" "Nothing special. I was just asking. And here you're all ready. Well, goodbye, Aliona Ivanova." Raskolnikov left in a great ferment. This ferment, sorry. Me when I'm a jar of jam, like low-key. This ferment kept mounting in intensity. On his way down the stairs, he paused several times, each time as though something... Does jam ferment? I'm not a jam maker. I wouldn't know. I don't really eat jam or use jam. I use Smuckers. I don't even use Smuckers. Half the time, at the cafe that I go to, like, they give me the grape jelly Smuckers, and I'm like I don't feel like asking for the like strawberry Smuckers because they're like because it's like one of those cafes where you go in, you like put something on your phone and they give it to you, and so like I don't want to be like an annoying and special instructions to be like, give me a strawberry Smuckers. So I usually just butter my toast, and if they give me a strawberry Smuckers, I will put the strawberry Smuckers on on the toast. But if they give me a grape, I don't. Sorry. Okay. On his way down the stairs, he paused several times, each time as though something had suddenly struck him. Finally, out on the street, he exclaimed, "My God, how disgusting! Can I? Oh, no. Nonsense! Stupid nonsense!" He added decisively, "How could I get an atrocity like that into my head? Into what filth my impulses? The first point is that it's filthy, lousy, foul. And for a whole month But neither words nor expletives could express his agitation. Even while he was still on his way to the old woman's, a feeling of endless disgust had pressed on his heart, twisting it out of shape. And now this disgust made itself felt so palpably, he did not know where he could flee to hide from his anguish. He walked like a drunkard along the sidewalk, heedless of passerby, occasionally bumping into them. He was a long block away before he came into his senses. He looked around. He was standing in front of a saloon that one entered by the stairs leading down from the street level to the basement. At that moment, two drunks were coming out of the doorway. They were leaning on each other, swearing loudly as they picked their way back into the street. Oh, you know what? Not my favorite book, but another book that's really good that I might read. Oh my god, I forgot the name of it. Oh my god, but the cover is like a picture of meat. It's the one of like the Lithuanian guy that comes to America and his like 14-year-old wife dies. And it's like the Gilded Age. He's like, I'm excited, I'm an immigrant, I'm working, I moved to America for freedom. Then like his whole family starves, his wife dies in childbirth. What is it called? And it's by like Upton Sinclair, I think is the name of the author. Oh my god, sorry. Without stopping to think about it, Raskolnikov made his way down. He had never gone into a saloon before, but his head whirled and a burning thirst oppressed him. He wanted a drink of cold beer, and he attributed his sudden weakness to the fact that he was hungry. In a dark, dirty corner at a sticky table, he found a seat. He ordered some beer and drank the first glass down greedily. Immediately, he felt better, and his thoughts grew clearer. The whole thing's absurd, he said hopefully. No reason to get all worked up. It's only physical. A glass of beer, a cracker, presto, my mind gets a grip on itself. I can think clearly, and my intentions grow firm. God, what appalling pettiness! And he spat. In spite of the scorn he had just expressed, he seemed happy now, as though he had suddenly freed himself of a terrible burden. Honestly, me, when I, finally eat after being hangry, we all get like that, girl. It's okay, Raskolnikov. His eyes embraced the denizens of that, cellar in a friendly spirit. But even then, he had a vague foreboding that this whole shift to the better was pathological too. Not many people were in the saloon at the time. The two drunks had been followed up the stairs by a group of 5 men and a girl carrying an accordion. After they left, it seemed quiet and empty. There was a man planted behind his beer, and he looked lower middle class, drunk, but only slightly. He had a companion, a stout, enormous man in a Siberian jacket, with a gray beard, who was very far gone indeed. He had dozed off on a bench, but every once in a while, in a kind of half-sleep, he would jerk his arms upward and apart and snap his fingers. Without rising from the bench, he would sway the upper part of his body and sing some trashy song, straining to remember such verses as, "He cuddled his wife all of a year. He cuddled his wife all of a year." Or once, he had jogged himself awake again. Walking out a clergy lane, he came upon his former flame. But no one shared his fun. Through all these outbursts, his silent companion looked at him with hostility and distrust. There was another man present who looked like a retired government clerk. He sat apart, a pitcher of vodka before him. Sometimes he took a drink, or, at long intervals, he looked around him. He, too, seemed a bit agitated. Period. How long are the chapters? I know that some of the chapters can be, really long. Are they? I think it's actually fine. I don't know. Yeah, I think the part where, the guy's, trauma dumping to Raskolnikov or whatever, that part's pretty long. But, oh my god, 24 minutes. I'm so sorry. So yeah, this was Crime and Punishment, chapter 1. Read with Aristide. Chat with Matt is not coming back. You cannot force me. I'm not gonna ever monetize my channel because I don't know how to set it up. I don't want to set it up because I'm really just reading a book, and I don't even think that my voice is not even that pleasant to listen to, because I put my voice in one of those like AI things, listen back to it, and I'm like, bro, I sound nasally. I sound like Ben Shapiro, bro. It's bad. So yeah, I'm trying to upload the most like neutral content ever, because like it's not that I like uploading myself. I do like uploading myself to YouTube. I probably am a narcissist, but I do like this book, and I want to get back into reading. So yeah, see y'all later. I'm invested. I forgot how good this book is, so I'm probably gonna film chapter 2 after this, but then I'll go to bed.